Graduation day should have felt more significant. A symbolic crossing. One foot in the realm of promise, the other leaving behind the safe, slow world of childhood. At least, that's what I'd told myself as I'd watched the faculty arrange themselves in neat rows on the makeshift stage in the gymnasium. I remember the sounds most, the restless scrape of folding chairs on parquet, the brittle coughs of disinterest. I'd been chosen to speak, not because I was class favorite, but because nobody else had wanted the job. My name had always hovered at the bottom of every social pecking order, awkward, with aspirations so dense nobody could relate. I started well enough. My hands shook as I gripped the paper, knuckles pale beneath the harsh school lighting. Today isn't a finish line, I began, scanning the bleachers for the familiar faces of my family. Mom, her face already creased with tired concern. Felix, my older brother, checking his phone. We are launching into a world that's changing, I said. The sciences, biology, machine learning, these are the new engines of progress. I hope someone in this gym will design... Someone coughed, deliberate and loud. In the corner of my eye, Lucas Schreiber, a compact boy with a voice that curdled milk, leaned towards his neighbor. Yeah, maybe she'll fix her dad first, he grinned, eyes fixed on me. The laughter rolled up the bleachers in a wave. One person after another feeding off the release. I stared over my script, blood burning under my skin. I tried again. What if we could use algorithms to... Lucas stood. What if bacteria make her a boyfriend too? That cracked them all open. Even the teachers grimaced. My mouth didn't work. Someone on stage shuffled forward. Hand paused near the mic. I clutched too tightly. I let go, the speech fluttering to the gym floor. When I walked off, my shoes squeaked in the unnatural hush my departure left. In the car afterward, my mother patted my knee softly. People don't understand these things yet, Liebling. Felix scoffed. Maybe stick to things people actually, want. Like something normal, not this computer bacteria nonsense. He looked away, rolling his eyes at the window. That was how I learned what it meant to dream wrong in public. I didn't stay in that small Berlin suburb much longer. The years that followed were years of tunnel vision, a hunger sharpened by every family dinner where my uncle asked how my bugs and bots were going, by every well-intended neighbor who nodded but never remembered what I was studying. University was a relief. I lost myself in the cold, sterile comfort of pipettes and algorithms, of datasets and coding marathons. The prickling mockery of my past haunted my sleep and sharpened my ambition. People thought of science as numbers, but for me it was something else. A way to build a world nobody could laugh at. I found a home in the biotech labs on the spree. Long nights left my skin raw, fingertips stained with chemical residue. I lived on instant coffee and stale pretzels. My advisor, Dr. Fastenrath, told me once, "You have what the others lack, desperation." She meant it kindly, but looked a little worried as she said it. By my late 20s, I'd written papers that only 3 people read. I shared cramped apartments, grew used to my mother's long vacations. Worried emails about job security and just-in-case plans. Felix married a sensible woman, started a small business, rolled his eyes each Christmas when I brought home a stack of equations to cross-check instead of a boyfriend. Every return home was a negotiation. Nobody outright laughed anymore, but they didn't know what questions to ask either. Was I still doing all that science stuff? Would I ever earn real money before 40? I knew the jokes that ran just beneath their words, the edge of fear that maybe I was wasting away after all, that maybe they'd been right. Then, a year before my 30th birthday, we made the leap. The idea was simple, but nobody wanted to believe it. What if, instead of spending years formulating a new antibiotic, we taught bacteria to evolve their own solutions? not with brute force in petri dishes, but with custom neural networks running millions of simulations. Searching for the optimal mutational path against stubborn superbugs. Every medical corporation wanted to believe in AI or biotech, but few trusted the intersection. Everybody muttered, hyped vaporware, then moved their money elsewhere. We almost didn't get the grant, but Dr. Fassenrath leveraged every favor she could. Our startup was mostly housed in repurposed server rooms and old Cold War bunkers outside Tegel. Months of experiments. Many failures, punctuated by exhausted laughter or midnight tears, scrubbed away before group meetings. We built custom algorithms, trained bacteria, and waited. I slept on lab benches, dreaming in code and nucleotides. The first result came by accident, a petri dish contaminated by a mislabeled pipette tip. I was the only one there at 2 a.m. when the fluorescence shifted, forming a glowing ring around the experimental colony. I spent the next 9 hours hunting down the evidence, running validation after validation. When the results published, nobody believed us, not really. The pharma giants sent their own teams, scoured our method, demanded more proof. For months, we endured scrutiny and veiled slights. All the old dismissals echoed through press releases and interviews. But patients started getting better. Bacteria evolved under our control, producing compounds no human could have designed alone. Within a year, we'd stopped a hospital outbreak nobody else could budge. Then, another, and another. Headlines trickled in. Berlin startup breaks superbug barrier. AI-guided biotech team challenges old guard. My name in print felt surreal. My own colleagues, once gently skeptical, now invited me to speak. Investors sent flowers, contracts arrived acre-deep in legalese. I barely noticed the accolades at first. I worked and worked and worked. I told myself it wasn't about them, or even the science anymore, but that would have been a lie. Every tired cell in my body remembered being laughed off that stage, remembered the small, sharp stings of my family's skepticism. I promised Dr. Fassenrath a break, but before I could take it, an invitation came for the same suburban high school for the 20th anniversary of my class's graduation. An alumni event, supposedly. The principal, maybe not realizing the irony, asked me to give the keynote. An inspiring talk for the next generation. My heart thudded in my throat as I accepted. I told myself it would mean nothing, but fear tangled at the edges. I arrived in March, the city brittle with cold and sunlight. The renovated school looked almost absurdly unchanged. The same honeyed brick, squat and broad against a pale sky. The auditorium bleachers looked smaller now. The air held the same faint smell of disinfectant and old paper. I sat backstage, clutching the notes I'd never need. My mother had insisted on coming, her hair threaded with new gray. Felix, ever dutiful, showed up with his wife and their 2 small children. He looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot at the entrance. Kids filtered in, less formal than my classmates had been. A few teachers greeted me with forced enthusiasm. Trying to recall if I'd ever caused trouble. I hadn't. The principal was a new man, eyes bright with the desire for a headline guest. The program rolled forward. A tepid jazz band, a speech by this year's class president, articulate but afraid to say anything memorable. Then my name, a polite smattering of applause. My mother's face flushed red in the crowd. I took the stage, letting the lights blind me. Let my notes rest forgotten by the microphone. 14 years ago, I stood on this stage and couldn't finish my speech. I began. People laughed at what I wanted to do. Maybe they were right to laugh. Some dreams sound impossible or even ridiculous. When I left this town, I wasn't sure I'd ever come back. A tremor ran under my words, but I let it stay. Tender but steel-throated. The feeling of so many years lived in the shadow of Mockery. At the time, everyone thought bacteria and code shouldn't mix. But it turns out, when you ignore the people who say no, sometimes you get to see yes. Sometimes you save lives nobody else can. A hush took the room. I told them about our work. Neural networks running on borrowed servers, bacteria shaped into disease-fighting machines. I spoke about risk and the loneliness of belief in an idea no one values, not even at home. I told them about a patient, a little girl who had survived a resistant infection in the Charité, whose parents sent me shaky, grateful videos months after she walked out of the hospital. As I spoke, I searched the crowd. Lucas Schreiber, hairline thinning, was there. Now a PE teacher, it turned out. He hunched near the back, arms crossed, face blank. His laughter echoed in memory, but I stayed steady. Then the principal pressed a button, and the projector flickered. He'd insisted on this, a live feed from the Berlin lab. My team appeared in grainy high definition. Svetlana adjusting her glasses and waving. Ajay holding up a petri dish to the webcam's eye. "We're patching in from Tegel," I said. "Our latest project is making news. This team is showing you, right now, the bacterial algorithm that beat a resistant pathogen for the first time outside a lab. It may